So guys, we have already done the discussion on the sternal end of the clavicle, which is the medial end which articulates with the sternum, and we have concluded our discussion on the lateral end of the clavicle, which articulates with the acromion process of the scapula at the lateral end and all its anatomical features. We have also discussed the muscle attachments of the clavicle. Now we will move on to a very important topic known as the muscle attachments of the upper limb. And these muscle attachments are very important to understand the you can say locomotion of the upper limb, that how these muscles actually coordinate with each other, so in order to perform the locomotion of the upper limb. So starting from the medial aspect, this is our sternum bone, and here a very important muscle is attached, which is known as the pectoralis major muscle. So pectoralis major muscle is attached at the medial end of the sternum bone. So furthermore on each ribs a particular muscle and a specific muscle is attached, and now we will discuss about it. So this is the first rib, second, and this is third rib. So on the third, fourth, and fifth ribs, a very important muscle attaches here, which is known as the pectoralis major muscle. So we will label it as like this. So on the third, fourth, and fifth rib, pectoralis major muscle is present. Now moving downward, on the sixth, seventh, and eighth ribs, the muscle that is present, it is known as the serratus anterior muscle. The muscle which is present at the 6th, 7th, and 8th rib, this is known as the serratus anterior muscle. So we have talked about the muscle attachments on each particular rib. Now moving above and discussing the muscles on the top part of the upper limb. So talking specifically of the clavicle, at the inferior medial aspect of the clavicle, the muscle that is present, it is the pectoralis major. Pectoralis major muscle. And at the lateral end of the clavicle, the muscle that is present, it is the deltoid. Now moving on further, this is the anterior portion of the scapula, and the muscle on the top of this region is present, which is named as the pectoralis minor. Pectoralis minor. And lateral to it, a very important muscle is present, which is known as the Brachioradialis, and it is also known as the short head of the bicep. Brachioradialis. It is also known as the short head of the bicep, which is present just beside the pectoralis minor muscle. Now moving on the humerus bone and discussing the muscle attachments of the humerus bone after discussion of the thorax region. So at the lateral end of the humerus, at the lateral top end, the muscle that is present, it is known as the supraspinatus. Supraspinatus muscle, which is present at the lateral top of the lateral top of the humerus bone. Now moving on the medial aspect, this muscle is known as the scapularis muscle. And moving further at the medial end, in this region, this is known as the long head of the tricep. And this is the region which is known as the infratubercle region, because it is present, this is the glenoid cavity and it is present below the glenoid cavity. That is why it is known as the inferior infratubercle. So this region is known as the infraglenoid tubercle, and middle to it, this is the muscle which is present, known as the Teres minor muscle. So this is the Teres minor muscle which is present right at the medial end of the long head of the tricep. Now further moving lower, these are the 3 rows of the muscle present, and we will name one by one. First of all, starting from laterally, this is the pectoralis major muscle. Now the second one, that is the latissimus dorsi, and then this is the third muscle which is known as the Teres major muscle. Now further below it, at the lateral aspect of the humerus bone, this is the deltoid muscle, and moving on to the medial aspect, this muscle is known as the brachioradialis muscle. And moving on the medial lower aspect of the humerus, this is the brachialis muscle. Now looking at the lateral aspect of the humerus, this muscle is known as the brachioradialis muscle. Now why it is known as the brachioradialis muscle? Now looking at this is actually the anatomical position of our arm. So we can see that at our lateral end the thumb is present and our radius bone is present. So that's why due to this reason, the lateral aspect, the muscle which is present at the lateral aspect, it is known as the brachioradialis muscle. Now further moving on downward, we can see that the two very important muscles are present. These muscles are actually very much important for our extension movement. So the muscle which is present here, it is known as the Extensor Carpi Radialis muscle. Extensor Carpi Radialis muscle, and below it the muscle which is present, this is known as the common extensor tendon. So these two muscles which is present at the lateral end of the humerus, which is named as the extensor carpi radialis and the common extensor tendon, these two muscles are responsible for the extension movement of the humerus. And now moving medially, the muscle which is present at the medial end, this is known as the pronator teres muscle, and below it the muscle which is present known as the common flexor tendon. So these two muscles are responsible for the flexion movement of our humerus. These are the pronator teres and the common flexor tendon. So I have discussed the whole muscle attachments of the upper limb, and hope you guys have understood all these features. And last but not the least, don't forget to the subscribing MS lectures. Thank you.